Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, Dietary Needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. Thank you for joining me this week for another lively conversation about all things food and beverage. And on the podcast, we talk to experts in a variety of different fields, from farmers to eaters to doctors, and today to a protocol and etiquette expert on how to eat. And especially, we're going to talk to her about eating at a virtual meeting, not just at a regular meeting. And so with me today, I'm excited to welcome is Pamela Eyring, who's the president and owner of the Protocol School of Washington, which is accredited by the Accrediting Council for Continuing Education and Training. The school focuses on international protocol, business etiquette, and communication skills training. And with more than 3 decades of public and private sector experience in operational protocol and educational development, Pam has an extensive knowledge of U.S. and international practices and is a global thought leader in etiquette and protocol industry. Welcome to the show, Pam.
Made me sound so special, Tracy. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Well, and this is totally off tangent, whatever, but I'm a Marine brat. So, and you worked in the were you in the military or you just worked for the military?
I was a civil service employee as an Air Force. My father was military. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're both brats.
We are.
Which is a good thing in some respects. But there's so much protocol in the military practices. So, from growing up and then working in that, is that where you got that experience?
I think a lot of it came, my mother, of course, was what I would call someone that could really set at a beautiful table. And I was an only child, and I always thought maybe the Army was coming over because she'd have all this food and everything. But I learned at a young age to respect elegance, to respect other people, and to have the highest hospitality. So it kind of started there. And then when I got into the Air Force, I started working when I was 18 years old. I was going to night school. And oh my gosh, Tracy, just the customs and courtesies of the military are just wonderful and rich in heritage. And so just learning them, those customs and courtesies and these formalities of diplomacy. And so it started as soon as I began working for the Air Force, and then hasn't stopped.
That's fantastic, especially as a military kid, and you go to different countries. There, you have to learn those different protocols as well from those countries.
Yes.
Not just for the military the self that you're in, by itself.
Right. And you can learn a lot when you're hosting. So when I was in protocol, we hosted a lot of dignitaries, international dignitaries. So even trying to understand and respect their culture, yet they're here in our country, how do you bridge those gaps and so that they feel welcomed and appreciated? Yeah,
because understanding, do those individuals eat with their fingers or do they use forks or is it time for fasting? I remember a couple of years ago, and I use this story a lot, but there was somebody coming, I believe he was coming from India, and he was coming to a dinner at the White House, and he was in the middle of a fast. And the media went berserk going, oh my God, he's putting his religious beliefs onto this political platform. And he really wasn't. He was okay with just having the water at dinner, but we all then felt uncomfortable because you feel uncomfortable when someone is not eating at the table with you, but we have to accept that.
Right. That's right. Or plan your meals around after fast, when they break fast, because usually, at least with Muslim culture, you don't drink water either When they fast, it's 100%. So they can't even just sip water and make conversation. But of course, he was, I remember that story, and it was really more the media blowing it out than him. They like to be very discreet about that and make small talk, et cetera. But, timing would have been better if they could have waited, but it could have been 10 o'clock at night for that fast to break. So that's not usually our dinner time, is it?
No, not at all.
But over there it is. Late evening is more dinner time.
So as somebody hosting an event, what is the best practice for doing that and managing those protocols for international dignitaries?
Well, I think we always started with learning more about the country and the culture and customs and courtesies, but also the individual. You don't bring someone over from China and take them to your local Chinese restaurant, right? They want American food, and culturally they want to experience what they've heard or would like to try. And in the United States, like Japan, beef is very, very expensive. So oftentimes when they come to the United States, they like to have a steak, go to a steak house or have steak on the menu. They don't want to have Japanese food. So taking in, how can you bridge the cultures together? So food does that, as you know. And then dietary restrictions or needs, requirements. If they've been on a tour in the United States and then they end up in Washington, D.C., you don't want them to have the same meal over and over and over again, coordinating that. Or, are there any religious aspects to their dietary needs or timing for that? Or allergies. As we know, allergies many people have allergies today. And so being aware of those things is important. So trying to build those and make them feel comfortable. So really what we have to do is ask for some of this information ahead of time so that we can help them have a good experience.
Yes.
Right? That's what we want. No illnesses, no deaths,
Right.
No problems, right? Just so that they can enjoy themselves and their company.
Right. Well, and I was talking to Joanne Mendelson Foreman. She teaches Gastro Diplomacy at American University, culinary cuisine, and conflict cuisine as well. And it's just, we break bread together and it helps bridge so many different divides that we might have. Food does. But that also, I think the etiquette and protocol behind that individual that you're having dinner with or lunch with or any kind of meal with is really important to add to that diplomacy and that gastro diplomacy.
Yeah, we think about it. That's where we build relationships. Now, Americans, we tend to be a little fast on the draw of, hey, let's get this contract signed, let's get this agreement, and we have to learn to pace ourselves, sort of like when we eat, because a lot of other cultures they use that as relationship building time, not just for decisions. So as when we get back into that culinary affairs that we used to have, I think we need to slow down a bit and not, rush the relationship. It's sort of like dating in a way. And, and to get to know you and to learn about you and what your likes and dislikes, or even some people watch to see how you treat the servers. There's how your personal diplomacy is working in the relationship with others that are supporting you or taking care of you.
Well, and I know there's times that I've gotten angry with a food allergy and the server doesn't understand me, and a look of disappointment comes across my face, but then it also gets me angry and I want to walk away, and I'm like, okay, just don't feed me, but it's getting that decorum to be able to also stand up for yourself,
yes,
and educate at the same time while asking, because I think some of those servers don't understand what vegan is or what vegan is not, or what a food allergy is, and maybe they just got hired, especially coming out of COVID. They just got this job and they've never waited tables before, and you're asking them for a dairy-free, gluten-free dish, and they're like, "What?"
Tracy, and I don't know, sometimes I don't think it's the server's fault. I really think it goes down to the chef, or the cook, and the communication change that from you to the server to the chef. Mm-hmm. And then what comes back out, the server doesn't know what it's supposed to look like or questions that chef, and here it comes, and then you see it's got sauce and it has all the stuff on it. I find that communications can be the challenge. So what I would recommend if you're going into a restaurant and you have certain allergies, I know this seems weird, but if you have it pre-printed on a card, mm-hmm. And say, could you please give this to the chef? And this is what I'd like to order for my meal. Or if you're going to a sit-down dinner again someday, hopefully, when we are all together again, that you could send that information ahead of time. I think that's what I have found is that a lot of people I know don't communicate it. They don't want to make embarrassing, And so what happens is they don't eat, right? Because we don't know what's in this. So we pick around. And if you are in that situation, you can play with your food. I know your mother or father probably wouldn't like me saying that. But you can move the food around. You can drink your water, or maybe if you can't eat the bread, you can nibble on that if there's anything to nibble on. But you can play with your food. But communicating ahead of time to the planners, hey, I do have severe dietary restrictions, please. And I'm emailing you, and then check on it when you arrive and say, I just want to be sure that you received my dietary needs, and I really appreciate it. And that's really, I think we need to take the step and not just show up and go, especially in a planned event, that expect them to be able to, immediately work on our dietary needs.
Well, and I'm glad you bring that up, because there are many times where people don't tell their dietary needs in advance because of the reasons that you said. And it's not as easy with a big event to flip a meal like that. And while you're waiting for your food to be delivered, you're also making everyone else at that table uncomfortable, because hopefully they were raised that you don't eat until everyone else has a meal. And yours might take 20 to 30 minutes, and so it makes an uncomfortable situation, I think, across the board.
Yeah. And you can say, please, yes, enjoy your meal. It's fine. I have plenty here I can snack on, or I'll just enjoy my water. And you can do that for your guests, but that's not what you want to happen. You want to fit in. And that's the other thing is to coordinate, as a planner, if I know you have certain restrictions, I don't want to just bring you a veggie plate. Say if you're vegan, the usual, whatever they put together. And, I'd like to know it in advance so that I can make sure we have something more creative for you. Instead of that meal, you know which one I'm talking about. It's just the standard, give them this and let them be happy. And it's not true. We have to look at every individual.
Yes, exactly. And because you want to make that experience as equal and opportunity for everyone. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So one main reason I reached out to you, besides talking for protocol in general, is that, somebody asked about what is the protocol for eating at a virtual meeting?
Like these crackers that I have here?
Right. Or these peanut.
Oh, let me just keep talking and snacking, and we're going to just add a couple more of those in there, and, and then wipe our mouths a little bit, yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult because the camera is right on you. And you need to be able to talk. Now, I can give you some tips, because sometimes I don't know about you, but I'm assuming that some of our Zoom meetings or platform meetings, back to back to back, and we haven't even had time to get something to eat. And maybe this particular meeting, I'm not talking so much. Well, if that's true, perhaps if you're nibbling on something, maybe make the bites a bit smaller. So like this is a full cracker. Right? Mm-hmm. That's a big cracker. I mean, I could make some chewing noises with that. Even if I'm muted, you can see the concern my chewing has. Chew that up. But if I break it down into small bites, like a small little piece, and then I just put it in my mouth and just, lightly chew it.
Well, and I eat those peanuts, and now I'm like cleaning up my mouth. Well,
the other thing is sometimes we can also lean back a little bit, so our face isn't like right up here, so you can see everything in your teeth, and be back here a little bit. where you're observing, which is fine. Now, there's, not to be too distracting, but you can go off your video and eat something and come back on, but you can't keep doing that, because then you're like, what's wrong with, why are they ping-ponging around? Why they turn the video on, turn it off, turn it on? So it's better, one, not to eat when you're on camera. It just doesn't look great. And not only that, it looks very distracting from someone else. I mean, in the real world, when we went to a meeting, and it was, but maybe there wasn't snacks for everyone, or we brought snacks to share. You can't do that virtually. I'm like, here, want a cracker? No, I can't get, unless we both agree to say, hey, this is a working lunch. But that's difficult when you're doing one-on-one as well.
And what about this?
Yeah, well, that's what happens, because when we're backstage, where we think we're backstage, we're still on stage when you've got a camera on you. And even with a person, we get a little comfortable, and then we're picking our teeth and going, making noises and trying to get stuff out of our teeth that was, bringing out toothpicks. I don't know. I've seen several things, and it's just not attractive. And it's like, we're branding ourselves. Every time we're on camera, we're branding ourselves, whether it's what we wear or how we communicate or the eye contact we give to the camera, or more importantly, listening to what's being said and being able to be involved in that meeting. And snacking is just difficult to do at the same time, especially with a camera.
Well, and even, using your computer to type on but that bag is worse, trying to open up, food and that kind of thing. And you don't really actually think about it. You don't think it's that noisy, but it is so expanded when you're on the computer. And
because you're trying to listen and the sound can be different everywhere. But yes, I agree. It gets a bit noisy when you're trying it. Now you can mute, but if you're supposed to be talking, that's one thing. I also try to avoid drinking out of like big water bottles or, right. I mean, it's like, go, it's, so I try to, what I do is I prepare and I put it in a glass, because if I'm talking to you, I can at least take a moment, take a sip, and it's not this big bottle covering the camera. I can just turn away a little bit, take a sip, and put it down.
Yep.
And it's a little bit more quieter than that big bottle having to lift it all the way up if there's only this much left. Maybe some of this doesn't matter to people, but I think it does, because I've heard all the complaints, Tracy.
Yeah.
People, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what she was wearing or he did on camera. And, it's just being situationally aware of what you're doing.
Well, and you could also end up on the nightly news or on the internet, like that poor woman who took her phone into the bathroom. But
that still happens, unfortunately.
Right. And didn't it happen in the Supreme Court or something? There was.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah. Somebody
sure
toilet flushing. So not a good thing. So, as we're talking, about etiquette and things like that, but we still have some meetings that are happening in person and maybe they're hybrid. Do you have some protocols that could actually, or some suggestions on doing those hybrid events? And let's talk about masks in it as well. But, some people are going to be, in person, and there might be being served something. And then there's the virtual attendees. Is there a way to manage that and just maybe send the virtual people off to lunch separately?
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it, is put a break, make an agenda. Like my team just had our first offsite together, or strategy for 2021 offsite. And it was a day, it was the first time majority of my team were together in one spot from the past 7 months.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a wonderful moment. But I also have two teammates that are in Dubai. I have one that's just turned 80. And so she's we did not want her to attend. We're trying to keep her safe, right? And then also one of my other teammates wasn't feeling very well and couldn't make the drive to Charleston, where we were going to have the meeting outside of Columbia, where our administrative headquarters are. So what we did was we had an agenda, and where we had breakfast was in place as long with lunch. We had a U-shaped table with 6 feet apart from each person. I asked the question for those who were going to attend in person if they wanted mandatory masks, and the requirement came back no or neutral. So I left it up to them to wear if they wanted to. We wore them in the hallways and going to the restroom and entering and exiting the conference center at Kiowa Island Resort, which was wonderful. It was a brand new resort that just opened in March.
Oh, wow.
And so they hadn't, so it was great because there was hardly anyone there. It was a perfect time to have a hybrid meeting, actually, because the timing was excellent. And then we had in Zoom, we brought in our other teammates. And then when we broke for lunch, we said, come back, and told them what time to come back. And they just went off, stopped the video, muted, and we had our lunch, and then we went right back on. So where it was, we use an owl. I don't know if you've heard of those. They're, it's like this, it's voice operated or voice sensitive. So when, my teammate would speak over here or over there, it would roll the camera towards them so that you could see them. Yeah, it's a pretty good device for smaller, small meetings, hybrid meetings. So that's how we did it, Tracy, is just to communicate that, Dubai is 9 hours ahead of us. So we tried to start early at 8 a.m. so that, but they kept up with us even as it got very late. But there was just no other way to do it. And I told them they could have the next day off or whatever. It was on their Friday, which is their Saturday. It's like our Saturday.
Right.
So you make these accommodations.
And you have to think about those. And I think there's a lot of conferences, and I've been to several, that people are watching it at 2 a.m. in the morning. And I'm like, okay, that's mind boggling. I'm like, let's record it. And one conference, they're like, we're not recording this. So it forced those people to stay up. And I just don't think that etiquette is appropriate.
Well, and that's what we're doing with our classes. We, in 4 weeks, had to basically change our whole business model from in-person classes, which was 100%, to virtual. And we've taken into consideration timing. So we have some one that we were doing for Germany started at 8 a.m. Japan was at 7 p.m. Our open enrollment classes we have between 9 and sometimes they're at 9 a.m. or 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and now we're starting one next year at 7 p.m. So people after work can get home, eat, and take their module, and we do them once a week so that they can fit it into their busy schedule, because a lot of people are going back into work and they're finding it difficult. So we've given them different time options, and it helps internationally too.
Right. That's fantastic. That adds a lot more to your plate.
It's kind of like taking care of people and their food requirements. Time is of essence too to people. So we're trying to help. Can't accommodate everybody 100%, but we're really trying.
Well, and that's the thing, is that you have to, I think communication is key in saying, okay, this is the time frame, but how can we help you? How can we create that experience to make it equal across the board? And what can we provide, services can we provide you to help make that experience? Right.
That's right. And so again, it comes down to the communication. I think one thing that we've seen in the meeting industry anyway, in trends, is that, is communicating a code of conduct, or basically when and where you have to wear the mask. And I've been helping planners assist them with what happens if someone shows up and they don't want to wear their mask in the event. You have to be prepared for that. And, you can't just smack them and say, sorry, you got to go. No, you've got to negotiate, basically influence that person or have a spare mask, have, set of new masks that they could use. And that's the first level is, well, I'm sorry, this is mandatory to wear a mask with everyone in the group for everyone's safety. Here's a mask if you'd like to participate. And if they said no, then perhaps have a contingency plan where they can watch the event in a private room. In other words, have a small meeting room space that you're streaming what's happening on the main stage if they don't want to wear the mask. Okay, you don't have to. I mean, and then the third option is, I'm sorry, we can't permit you to come in. And knowing when you can say that and have authority to do it, or say, let me find my supervisor and I'll let her or him talk to you. Something of that nature. Know how much you can push and communicate it in a nice way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that takes training and diplomacy sometimes,
Right.
that I think meeting planners are very good at, but sometimes there are people, we all experience it, that just want to tug our strings a little too much.
That's right. And you smile.
Exactly. Okay. So one of the questions that I ask you, all right, I'm going to pause this for a second because the sun is blinding me. All right. So, all right. When we're talking about food and beverage and service and things like that, there's a gentleman that I met years ago through the Society of Government Meeting Professionals. Mm-hmm. And he said he never serves pork or shellfish or nuts and one other food at any kind of events that he does internationally because it really helps in planning these menus.
That's true.
Follow that same protocol?
We do. It depends on if it's not an international audience. If we don't think it's an international audience, I might use pork in our planning, but we communicate the menu ahead of time.
Okay.
That way, if there's any challenges or issues, then we can take care of those in advance. So I don't think pork, it depends on where you're at. I mean, I live in South Carolina, but I, commute to Washington, D.C. And so pork's a big thing down south. Okay. Mm-hmm. And pulled pork, barbecue pork, and it's like the Bumba Gump, it's like shrimp too. It's like very popular here. So knowing who your audience is, but communicating what the menu would be ahead of time. If you're not doing a buffet, which is not popular today, too much, but if you're going back to a sit-down meal and you have your spacing, your distancing, et cetera, and pre-plated, I would recommend, if you want to use pork, you can, but know who your audience is and communicate it in advance. Okay. And same with the other allergens, like nuts and things. I mean, you can make it sound good, but still clarify what's in it, or let that person that might have a restriction contact you, and be able to go, oh, I'd love this menu, but could we just take all the nuts out? You got it, right? And being that customer service level will help us build better relationships, and more people come to our events.
Right, exactly. A story just popped into my head from years ago, and this was from a different planner. An attendee had communicated that she had nut allergies, but didn't tell them that it was airborne. And the planner ordered a Nutella pie that was preset for 900 people. Oh. The attendee told her like an hour and a half before the event. This was her company's awards ceremony, and there was nothing the hotel or the planner could do in 90 minutes to feed. So this woman ended up having to miss her company awards dinner by sitting in that separate room that you mentioned, or in a restaurant. And because she didn't communicate that information, they were able to make changes, accommodations for the next couple of days. But unfortunately, for the lack of communication, it was an issue.
Yeah, that was huge. That's and that's what I say, communicate both ways.
Yes.
So, here's our menu, and we're going to have this Nutella pie. It's going to be cut for 900 people. Well, you don't have to tell them all that, but, that's common in the United States is the preset meals.
Yes.
And if, that's a problem, but that's common when we go to conferences and events.
Yeah.
But being airborne, that's specific. And if they were like, no, we can't serve that. We need to change that up, because especially if she was important to being there, was her company's award night.
Right. Exactly. Now, I asked you a question beforehand. Do you have an example of a situation that negatively impacted you or individuals in a group experience? And I love your response about people going through buffets.
I've seen, as a protocol professional, I planned a lot of meetings and meals, and for internationally, heads of state to a holiday event, and it never ceases to amaze me how we go backstage so quickly. Want to double dip or standing over the buffet, because at one time we wouldn't have the plexiglass, right? Today you might see some of that and they're handing you little bento boxes full of little snacks, and we're taking those and only touching ours. But seeing people hover over a buffet and literally seen it many times, put their hands in the food and take a piece out without a fork, even though that would be just as bad, but meaning a toothpick or anything, just using their fingers, just pulling it out. That's good, I mean, I understand as planners after the event, we know everybody's gone and we're going to nibble. That's, still you shouldn't do that. Get a spoon or get something, put it on a plate. And then eating all the shrimp. I don't know what it is about Americans and shrimp, but we take these little plates, these nice little cocktail plates, and, it's a beautiful display of shrimp, and I don't know how they do about 4 layers of shrimp that high without, falling over, but people take too much. When we're planners, we're expecting, maybe 3 pieces each or up to 5. Some people won't eat any at all because they can't. And, so it balances out, right? We know the ratios. It's like, whoa, somebody hit the shrimp pretty hard. I don't know, trying to get their money's worth of registration, I guess.
I guess so. Now, okay, and we're running short on time, but one of my questions, because you just mentioned it, was the plexiglass. And with COVID coming back, are there protocols that planners and hoteliers, convention centers should take into consideration that they didn't think about before that relate to etiquette and protocol when serving food and beverage?
Yeah, I think they're doing pretty good, actually. I think the hospitality meeting planning industry has been doing pretty good. Really, it's all about allowing self-serve, but yet individual. So those bento boxes you see, or when we were in Kiowa, they had this great snack, and it was like in a paper cone. It was pork rinds, of course, but they were homemade pork rinds, and they were in a cup. So it was individual. So all you did is take the cup away. And we were wearing our mask going through, it was like a PM afternoon snack break. Mm-hmm. And they had some more, I must have picked it out because I do like pork, but they had like a jalapeno bacon strip that, mm-hmm. On a stick kind of thing. And, just really unique dessert or snacks, but individual. So you don't touch any of the food. There's a plexiglass. But it allowed me to go up and look at what I wanted and be able to just take it and go back to my place setting in the meeting instead of picking through, taking it and making my own. Or I've seen really cute, like I said, bento boxes. They're using these in Dubai. We did our first in-person training in Dubai, and it was a small bento box that had little individual snacks and it had a cover on it, a clear cover. So it's like getting your own little bento box, and then you could pop it and go, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. And so it helps with food control, if you think about it. So if you had an allergy or restriction, then I could have the chef make those snacks just for you. And so when you come up, all you'd have to do, Tracy, is say your name, and it's like, oh, here you go. And then that would be your own. And then they know exactly what's in there, and you'll feel more comfortable and confident that you're eating something you can without getting ill. So
right. Yeah. Which is super important.
Yeah. And I think just paying attention to those things and then how we distribute it. Some of these have these self-service coffee makers now, where it's touchless, but sometimes they don't work real well. Sometimes they stick on and you're like, oh my gosh, the coffee's not stopping. Then you're trying to put your finger behind it. Certain ones are more difficult than others. I haven't found the perfect one yet. Maybe it's out there, but it's like I've had to do that. I'm like, I'm going to burn my finger to get this coffee to stop, or it's going to go over my cup. So,
well, yeah, because you have to
testing them.
the right size cup for the pour. Exactly.
Right. And so when you're pressing that mug or cup, they're doing a lot of plasticware now and styrofoam things again. But when you press it, and you pull it back and it keeps going, that's a problem because you're going to have to physically touch it anyway. So testing is what I'm saying is if you're in charge of food and beverage, you got to make sure all this new things are working and in good repair. So that plexiglass has to be clean, right? Yeah. Cleansed, nice, but not with heavy ammonia, et cetera, where you're smelling that with the food. So
that would not be good.
With that and see if there's an odor from the cleansing of that.
Very good point. Exactly. Now
that won't taste good if you keep smelling. Yeah, it's like flowers. You know how we try to do flowers that don't have scent, so that it doesn't fight with the smell or the deliciousness of the food aroma, right? So it's the same thing.
Yeah, because you eat with your eyes and the smell before you actually eat with the palate, and so it's not going to taste appealing if it tastes like smells like the cleaning solutions,
like Clorox.
Exactly. All right. So, 3 really quick questions. So, one is a lot of people are doing virtual events that are specifically designed around food and beverage. So they're doing wine tastings or they're sending food home to individuals, and having town halls. Is there, besides, not picking your teeth and watching that, but what kind of protocols can you incorporate into a wine tasting or anything else that we might not be thinking about?
Well, if it's educational, for instance, if it's just you and I getting together for wine night and just talking and being more backstage, if you will. But if it's really a company event or an organizational event, you're still on stage, but you want to participate. So you can stay muted. You can swirl the wine. You can listen. You can hear the instructions of the wine tasting or the food pairings, and just try to do it discreetly. And just I would test, like I always before I get on a Zoom call, I will test my Zoom, and it's just Zoom US/test, and then this way I can look at where my camera's set, what's behind me. I look at myself and say, oh, the ceiling looks really good. Or all I can see is my nostrils, and then I adjust the camera so that, and then my chair in position, and then I have the things I need at my fingertips. So preparation. And then I feel like I can participate and be involved in that dining experience or the wine tasting, so that I can pay attention and learn. And so if they're teaching me the wine etiquette, or if, they've sent food or pairings to the house, for instance, or, my organization, which not very many people are here at one time, but to try. So I want to be involved in that and learn, because so many people are taking cooking classes and famous chefs and learning about all this. And so if you're on camera, then you're on camera. Just be ready for that. Be prepared. Look at yourself and see, what, like the sun coming in, I always try to position myself where there is light in front of me instead of behind me. Because if it's behind me, it washes us out, it's dark, or it shadows your face. I was on an interview and getting ready to go live, and 5 minutes before the sun was setting, and all these lines were across my face from my windows in my office. I'm like, because I can't do it at my house. It's too noisy with my dogs and everything. So I'm trying to find pictures to put up there, because I'm usually not here at 7:00 at night videoing, right? So those are the things I would recommend.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so how can people find out more, find you? What links and...
Well, it's so easy. I mean, the best way to go is to our website at psow.edu. And you can find all our social media channels there. You can look at all our blogs. We've written a lot. We have a lot of good advice for free, written in blogs or in videos that I've done. So just like we're just trying to help people, Tracy. And then for those that are serious about their career and want some professional development or need it, then we have our courses that they can register for. And we have one that's just started, but people can jump in as necessary and take certain modules, or they can complete and get their certificate. And it will help, especially for meeting professionals, special event planners and professionals. I think having protocol is that next level to focus on the individuals. And that's what we're going to have to do more of as we continue through our days with a pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many new things thrown into our plates. Okay, so my final question is, what is your favorite food and or beverage to drink?
Well, it's really more of a meal. It's called Skyline Chili. I don't know if you've heard of it. I'm originally from Ohio, and it's piping hot spaghetti with this chili that's a little bit on the lightly sweet, not a lot, and then it's piled with shredded cheddar cheese, and then you hit it with some hot sauce, and it's called a 3-way, or you can add onions and beans, and it could be a 5-way. But that has been a favorite meal of myself and my family's for a long time, since my Ohioan days. And then popcorn, of course. I love popcorn. It's an addiction. It's terrible. I don't care what kind of popcorn. I'll eat any kind of popcorn. Beverages, I love lemonade. Love a good fresh lemonade. And then for the cocktail hour, I probably would enjoy, my favorite would be, my go-to would be probably an old fashioned.
Okay.
I like the muddled cherries and the oranges in there, and a good bourbon, So that's those are mine.
Well, good. You know what you like, and that's important.
I do. Not too much.
Well, thank you so much. There's so much to learn about protocol and etiquette, and we all think that we know it, but every little bit of education helps, because you never know what you can learn and how you can actually make somebody feel so much more included in a food and beverage experience.
And that's really should be our goal as we continue. We're humans. We're human beings, and we want to be treated well and with respect and dignity. And that's how we do it, is with food, or in our virtual meetings, watching our snacking habits, and just being respectful to other people and learning about other people. So much fun. I enjoy it.
It really is. Yeah. And I have this thing that I love to talk to strangers. And so I have nobody is a stranger, because they all become my friends. And I love it because you get to learn, hey, oh my gosh, we're both military brats, right? Yeah, right. Or, we grew up in the same town, or we know such and such. And I think it adds so much more to our lives by just doing that. And learning about your spaghetti is something totally new. It reminds me of smothered covered at Waffle House.
It's a little bit different toppings. Yeah, for sure. But you can buy it at Kroger. You have a Kroger, you can get it. They have it in the cans. Yeah, try it out. The recipe's right on there. It's all in a can. It's just the chili. Make the spaghetti, get the cheese, boom, you're done. All right. I don't know your dietary needs, so I don't know. Maybe I'm telling you.
I can get gluten-free spaghetti. That's fine. Yep.
There you go. Yeah. So, but that's what I would ask if you were coming to my house.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Well, thank you, Pam, for spending a little bit over 30 minutes with me. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure the Eating in a Meeting community will greatly appreciate it as well. So thank you for being at the Eating in a Meeting podcast. We're here weekly talking to experts in all fashions of food and beverage, from farmers to protocol experts to chefs and eaters. So please check us out on every podcast platform, as well as the Eating in a Meeting Facebook group. Thanks everyone for being here, and talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.